So we've got Kevatta on the line. Is that how you pronounce your
Hey,
name? Or
yeah, that's right. Thank you for getting it right.
cool, we got Kevatta, and we've got Kim as well. Kim
Hey,
was
I'm
just
glad.
saying how she's a big fan of Kevatta. She found his music to the Spotify playlist, Infinite Feedback Loop, and was obsessed. And this is a good time to have us discuss, Kevatta, your music, how you started.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Uh,
just to start this off with a few introductions. My name is Kevin, but I go by Kevatta. I'm a LoFi Hip-Hop producer from Los Altos, California. And I got into music making about, let's see, 4 years ago in college. One of my friends from high school introduced me to Fruity Loops, and I was really looking for a more productive use of my time and more creative outlet for myself, and it just clicked really well. And here I am. It's been an amazing journey.
yeah,
Great.
that's awesome.
So yeah,
That sounds
I checked out a couple of your other interviews, and it's been pretty entertaining to listen to some of the other folks you've spoken to. So to everyone else out there, feel free to check those out. They're pretty entertaining.
I appreciate it. I definitely do. And to everybody else out there, feel free to listen to Kevatta. His music is very entertaining.
I really started out working with a bunch of other producers, like let's see, like Saib. I've worked with a bunch of people from my collective Radio Waves, which is run by
Okay.
Kano, aka Ocean Jams. Wonderful
Cool.
guy, excellent artist, and we're just one big family. And our new compilation, Radio Waves Volume 5, should be coming out in the following months. And while I won't be on it, as I've been working on my LP, it should be a really great, really great project, and a lot of rappers and vocalists should be on that as well. So definitely stay tuned.
Perfect. Yeah, so you recently released EP, correct? Soar, or that was in 2017?
Yeah, I released that one off Spotify a little late, even though I put it on SoundCloud a bit earlier. But now it's just on Spotify. But the last EP I made was called Wish. And I made that in
Wish. That's what it was.
I released that in, let's see, May of 2017. And yeah, that was a really sort of introspective project, but it's been really well received, and I've just been so happy with the people I've gotten to work with, like Saito, who's from Prato, Italy. He's an amazing artist, a really great human being, and my friend Quentin, who produces under the name From Here, and he is in LA.
So what does your music mean to you? Because you said it was very introspective. So when you create art, what goes into the process?
That's a good question. Sometimes I'm not even really actively thinking of like what it means, and it's just something that I like discover as I do it. And sometimes I even
Right.
look back at my art and like I'm still trying to figure it out. I think a lot of artists really operate that way, how they're sort of on the borders of what they understand, and they're trying to explore unknown territory. So I think one of the a really important distinction to make with art is that if you go in there with like an agenda, with like what you're trying to push, it's more like propaganda than art. And I would rather,
Right.
be exploring the unknown and the unknown territory, which is what I think is so appealing to a lot of people about lo-fi in general and hip hop in general. Because especially with lo-fi, I guess it's just like there's so many experimental sounds that have really come out of the genre in general, and it's just been like it's just a really weird, like awesome sounding place in the music galaxy.
Yeah. When did that come out as sort of like a mainstream type of music? Do you study lo-fi? Not obviously not study, but have you been kind of paying attention to it for a while? Is it something that's been recent because of Spotify, like you mentioned, or?
I mean, me personally, some of my bigger influences have been like Nujabes, Jay Dilla, and like the Stones Throw guys, like Sam I Am and
Right.
Knowledge, that whole crowd. But lo-fi, I guess, it's sort of its own beast. Like it's really come into the forefront in the last couple years, particularly on SoundCloud, and it's really, really starting to get more visibility on Spotify too, which is how you discovered me. It's just a really exciting time for lo-fi and to be a lo-fi artist, and I think we're really at the forefront of some of these more experimental sounds, which is sort of why I'm in the game, is because it's just like I do things that I find are interesting. Like I'm not married to like one genre per se. I just do what I find to be interesting, and like I'll just keep on having that be my focus versus just letting the genre lead me by the nose, so to speak.
So what's next for you? Like, do you have a particular roadmap that you see, or are you just playing around, creating music until something happens and you're just having fun with it? Do you have a goal, or is this, your goal, to be able to create art and have fun and be able to enjoy it?
Well, it started out as a hobby for me, and I've been working, full time for the past couple of years. Like right now, I work at Google, even though right now I'm obviously just representing myself. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd say one of my long-term goals is to become a full-time artist and to be able to dedicate all of my time to art and music. But I think it's been important for me to be able to also develop other aspects of myself professionally and just give myself more of a solid foundation so I can operate in the world at the best of my ability and just do the most good for as many people as possible. So
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Kevatta for president. So you said you're over at Google right now, and you're actually taking the call from Google. So shout out to Google for that. But I have a question about your performances. So when it comes to being, a professional artist, have you booked shows consistently as well? How's the performance life been for you?
I'm a bit more of a behind the scenes producer, though sometimes what I'll do is, at least when I started out in college, I would just do a lot of parties, and I would DJ at a lot of parties. And I've been a
Right.
little bit more key now because I've been really, focusing on getting the whole production aspect of it right. But you can expect to see me, pop up in the next coming months to, I'd say, next coming years. And I've really been sort of more focusing on orienting my sounds towards a live experience. So I would say
Yeah.
that's really the next stepping stone for me is getting that right. I feel blessed to be part of a great network of other artists who have been killing it as well. So I've been appreciating their feedback on how I can orient myself more towards giving the fans that sort of experience. So
So
very exciting for sure.
when I think of lo-fi in a show, I just think lights. I think of Baby's All Right in New York. I don't know if you've been there or been to New York. I just think just this open venue, a lot of people, almost like trance, but not really, just having a good time. So what's your favorite part about the performance? Is it, 1,000 people in a room? Is it 200 people, in a house? Is it out in a field at a festival? And if you could perform anywhere in the world, where would it be?
That's a really interesting question. So to sort of start out, I'd like to sort of address that like academically. So part of my like part of my educational experience is I got my degree in sociology and Japanese studies. But I think
Oh,
music
cool.
is, especially live music, is interesting in the sense that like I sort of see it as like a giant social experiment. It's like, oh, I push
Hmm.
this button or I turn this knob, and like let's see how they react to it. So
Well,
I
just to
just
jump into that really quickly, there's this guy, Howard Bloom, I met, and he was a neuroscientist, or not neuroscientist. He studied, I don't know, he actually, I think he might be a neuroscientist. But when he was
oh word.
younger, he hitchhiked across the country from upstate New York to California,
Mhm.
and ended up working for avant-garde art studio, but then ended up getting into music because he realized that uh there was like almost a spiritual aspect to music. When there's live music going on, there's people performing, and then the people in the crowd, there's like an instant connection. Everybody just feels an almost extraterrestrial force when someone's having a good time. Obviously, don't say that to someone who's doing a bad performance. But he ended up working for Queen, Michael Jackson, Prince. He was actually the highest
Really?
grossing PR agent of all time.
And he
And
was
right
a
now he's on
neuroscience? He's a
Yeah, so he was
neuroscientist?
a neuroscientist. Yep, and then he ended up doing music for quite a long time, and now he works. He's on the board of the U.S. Space Mission. I don't know if there's an actual official name, but he works with like Buzz Aldrin, and he connects with Elon Musk, and he tries to bring people to the moon and Mars. But he's always been so fascinated by the mind and how people interact with music. Like that was his biggest passion, and that's how he grossed like $6 billion for Disney, ABC, and damn near half the record labels that exist today, because it was an intellectual pursuit. So sorry to interrupt, but that when you said that you're going at it from an academic perspective, there's definitely solid truth behind that.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
in the case of him, like, that seems like the natural consequence of him, extending that body of work to like a different medium. So like sometimes, you never know where your pursuits will lead you, right? Sometimes, well, yeah, at least in his case, it sounds like, the entertainment industry, in neuroscience, I can see how that would go hand in hand. But yeah, man, like, interesting stuff. You learn something new every day.
Did you say you like minored in Japanese?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that
Is that
like sorry, is that where like the like idea or like the words for the track for the song "Girl" in like your EP Soar is from?
Yeah, so
Japanese?
Japan influenced me a fair amount. So this will just give you a bit more background. I'm also a twin, and
Okay.
one of like the earliest things I could say I've been proud of is I could read slightly before my brother could, and my brother's brilliant, but I figured like, maybe languages is something I'd be gifted in. And I really hated middle school, like all throughout middle school. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but like, no kid likes middle school. So I was a little jaded with the whole educational process when I was younger. But when I went to high school, Homestead High School in Sunnyvale, California, actually the same high school that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak went to. When I was a freshman, I signed up for Japanese, and I'd played a lot of video games, and I really liked Japanese food. So I'm like, oh, like I had this little advantage when I was younger. Maybe I could run with this, since I'm jaded with the rest of education. And I think that was one of the best decisions I made in my entire life. It just gave me a whole lot of self-confidence around my ability to learn and put myself in new situations. And it eventually led me to living in Japan for half a year when I was in college. And over there, I just went on a bunch of adventures with shout out to my friends Jack Waddell and Matt. And yeah, we just two of my friends who I studied abroad with. And yeah, we just went on a whole bunch of crazy adventures in Japan. And I just learned more Japanese because I was fully immersed in it. I did like a homestay. And I still try to visit Japan every now and then when I can. It's just a beautiful country, and I can't say enough good things about it.
Cool. So you're saying about performances, the live, the large room, the small intimate crowd, the big festival. Yeah. What do you like the best in terms of performances, and where would you perform if you could?
Well, I've yet to tackle the big festival scene. I mean, I've usually played pretty small crowds and played pretty intimate parties, and I see myself keeping it that way for the foreseeable future until I can, really understand where I'm trying to get this live experience to go. But I'm getting more and more of a sense of what that's supposed to look like, and I feel like the best way to deliver the most optimal experience I can to the fans would be to, get my bearings and just do a whole bunch of, crazy pop-up parties, and then sort of scale it from there. So I think that's the best way to fulfill my artistic responsibility to those who've been supporting me up until now.
Nice. Like Iowa City, like Blue Moose Tap House, like any of the U of I
make that one of
bars.
those pop-up spots.
Word. Note taken.
So, do you have a dream collaboration? A dream collaborator?
Dream collaborator.
And how do you work with other artists?
So, it's usually in terms of I'll try to take that question apart one part at a time. In terms of my dream collaboration, I'd really like to work with some some of the Stones Throw guys would be pretty cool. Like I'd like to work with like maybe Knowledge someday, or Sam I Am is really cool. I like him a lot too. He kills it with the SP404. That guy is a madman. So that's like wishful thinking on my part, but you never know, man. But I when you work with somebody else, you sort of have to understand, what they get right, right? What they do on the most like fundamental elemental level, and how they can do just the best thing as simply as possible. Like in my opinion, the dopest artists are the people who can do something really, really dope in a really, really short amount of time. And like we to this day we don't know the upper limits of what that can be. And I think when I work with someone, I try to recognize what their strengths are. Like I'll listen to their music and be like, oh shit, like you totally killed the sample, or I really liked your drums on this track. But I just try to gauge whether like the melodic aspect of it is their strong point, or it's more like percussion. And I just try to say, okay, like I really like what you did in this song, and I think we could get this to work again in a different context. Like if we could make this strength of yours, if we could apply it to something new, like what would that look like and what would that sound like? So I just try to, and sometimes, like we'll find a sample and it'll just really resonate with us, and we'll just want to breathe new life to it and sort of extend its narrative even further. But there's the spontaneous aspect of it, but also just really knowing the strong points of who you're working with and what you want to get right. So I mean, I usually have
complement each other.
Mhm. So yeah, I'd say it's really contingent on who you're working with and what you're trying to do, and that's what my answer would be for that. Was that sufficient for you?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's awesome, man.
Cool.
What have been some of your biggest challenges so far? I know you don't have too much time left, but I just want to get two main questions out.
Definitely.
The first thing is, what have been some of your biggest challenges in growing your art, growing your career? And the second would be, what have been, some of your biggest achievements to date?
Absolutely.
Something you're really proud of.
Mm-hmm. I'd say in terms of biggest challenges, every artist experiences like an artist block, or just a patch where it's difficult to create or be creative, and everyone experiences that. And I think there is a time and place to take a break from creative pursuits, because it's not easy, and everyone just experiences that. But I think it's important to understand the difference between giving yourself a reasonable amount of time to be creative and not resting on the laurels of yesterday. Because if you can't make that distinction, things just get really gray and really hazy. And for me personally, the reason why I got into music and art in general is to sort of explore this aspect of myself that's in touch with something greater. So I just want to. I think one of my biggest challenges has been contextualizing the creative part of myself with like balancing that with maybe some of the professional aspects of what I do. But just also making sure that I'm being kind to myself and giving myself the time to be creative, and setting some time aside where I can just dedicate that to fleshing out my ideas. So I think that's something that every artist struggles with, but it's something that for me personally, I'm just really beginning to understand right now. So I'm a pretty young guy. I'm 25. I think I'm taking this creative game at a pretty good pace, and I'm running into the walls that I'm supposed to be running into at a pretty good stage of my life. So
yeah, you definitely have some trajectory.
So I'm trying to be patient, and I'm trying to keep my ear to the ground and operate from a place of perspective is what I'm trying to say. So
well, you definitely have humility, my friend.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And what was? Can you remind me the latter half of your question? It had something to do. Oh,
it was,
yes, that's right. My biggest
accomplishment, achievement, something you're most proud of.
So something that I'm actually glad you asked that. Something that actually happened a couple days ago is I hit my millionth listen on SoundCloud, which is just
nice.
awesome. Yeah, It's a
Hey, thanks
landmark
to
for
Kim.
sure. all the credit is to you. But yeah, but it was just a really special moment for me because I'd taken piano lessons when I was a kid, but I had really just not touched music for maybe like a decade of my life, and I just remember when I was younger, I would stay in my room and I would listen to music and I would draw pictures of just the fantastical images that would come into my head, and that was sort of my creative outlet when I was younger. But I didn't really tap back into that until I discovered Fruity Loops and until I really got back into music and hip hop in particular. But I think it was an important thing for me to realize because while I'd been in the game for like 4 years, just like seeing it manifest that you can put the time into something and you can actually get a response from it, and people can react to it and listen to your art and appreciate it and have it affect their lives. I just think that it's something that's unique unto itself, and that until you experience it yourself, it's like, whoa, like it becomes real, right? It's like, whoa, like that actually happened. Like you see the number, it's like, damn, this is real. So I'm still sort of like adjusting to it, but like I was saying, I'm trying to not rest on the laurels of yesterday, and always keeping my eyes and ears open to the next big sound and to the next big idea. So that's who I am.
Cool. There you go. Kim, do you have any other questions? Anything you'd like to know?
I have like one obvious question, which I guess maybe you sort of hinted at with your talk about being also majoring in Japanese, but like where does your name come from?
Where does my name come from? Great question.
It's a Buddhist passage about Kevatta, right?
Oh my God, yes, you are right. So, first of all, great I like finding that, but where I actually got my name is from that passage about this mythological figure who asked Buddha, like, show me some miracles, man, because I don't believe that you're this special magic guy. And Buddha basically responded like, the real magic isn't like performing all these magic tricks. It's being true to staying on the right path and being humble and keeping your eyes and ears out for others. But the funny thing about how I found that passage is when I was studying abroad in Japan, I'd been going through a couple difficult experiences, which I won't care to elaborate on at the moment. But I was really sort of looking for some guidance and just something to sort of lift my spirits and maybe give me some more context on what it meant to be a human being. And I remember I was staying with my family in a hotel in Kyoto, and I found the Book of Buddha in a hotel. And truth be told, I stole it from the hotel because I really wanted to read it. So it's just like one of the least enlightened things you can possibly do. And,
or the best thing, right? Isn't that what it's there for?
or the best thing. Maybe it was meant to find me. But yeah, man, I guess it's just sort of a sick joke that I had in the back of my head of like, oh, maybe if I could like surpass this mythological figure on like the Google searches, then I would become the mythological figure. So it's sort of part of my like warped sense of humor, but at the same time, it came from a genuine place when I was looking for that information.
Awesome.
Nice, yeah. I don't know. It kind of sounds like that's sort of how you have a work ethic too, about being humble and such. So full circle.
Trying to keep things in perspective and not like intelligence and skill tends to fall in love with its own devices. So there's always people who are dedicating more time to the craft than me, and every moment that I'm not spending trying to get better and improve my game, there's going to be someone else who is. So I'm trying to keep perspective, like you were saying, and not rob myself of the satisfaction of discovering the next big hit.
If you had to give a piece of advice to an artist who's looking to get to their millionth play or just starting out, what would it be?
My advice would be don't feel ashamed to be making shitty songs for about a year or two, because part of how you think is by risking being offensive, but also operating out of ignorance, right? So I would say, when you start out, you might not like how you sound, but be able to negotiate with yourself and be like, hey, like, I understand that I might not be ready or at the full capacity to do my best work, but like, you have to understand that it's a process, and you have to be able to be patient with yourself. And habits are very powerful too. So if you get into the habit of producing content consistently, even if it's not something you're absolutely proud of and you think it's going to change the game, showing up is a huge part of developing yourself. So I would say just show up and be patient. Be very, very patient.
Show up and be patient. That's great.
I have a project that's going to be dropping in a couple months. I'll go ahead and announce it right here. It's with my buddy from here. It's going to be an LP or a tape. And we have some really, really special stuff in store. So don't think that I was sleeping. I was at work the whole time.
Cool. Well, I'm glad we knew you when, and you're already there. So thank you so much for your time.
Word, you guys
I feel better just speaking with you. Thank you so much, Kevatta, Kim. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, totally. You both take care and have a great day.
Yeah, no, you're the man. You're the man, Kevatta. Hopefully we all get some Kevatta in our lives, and have a great day.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.